About this film, Rick Groen of Globe and Mail says the director might have made a brilliant picture if he followed through. Seems he just couldn't bear to look a gift wolf in the mouth. Hal Hinson of the Washington Post calls it a sometimes shaky, always enchanting Beauty and the Beast story for grown-ups that is the very essence of smart fun. Droll, sophisticated, and surprisingly pleasantly light. And Letterboxd user Shut Up Mike Ginn says, I was the guy in charge of scaring the horses during this movie, and buddy, let me tell you, I was busy. On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of Wolf.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be? It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters, and welcome to Ruined Childhoods. I'm Dan.
Hey, and I'm Jon. Dan, are you feeling extra wolfy tonight or what?
I am feeling hairy. I'm feeling like, ooh, I was gonna say the moon is out, but it is not out, and if it was out, it wouldn't be full. But I don't care because we're talking about werewolves.
We are talking about werewolves, specifically, I guess, mostly 1994's Mike Nichols film Wolf. And Dan, I believe that you also wanted to talk about. Is it just called Wolfman? The Wolfman.
The Wolfman.
Gotcha.
Not just any Wolfman. The Wolfman, which does make sense considering the plot, because it is more or less a remake of the 1941 Wolfman.
Yeah.
But
Dan, I gotta tell you, it took me a few sittings to finish Wolf because it's long and it sucks.
Oh, you didn't like it. Was this your first time seeing Wolf?
First time seeing Wolf, and I remember when it came out. I remember the poster for it. It must have just been at Blockbuster during a time in my life when I remembered what everything looked like in Blockbuster, and I don't know. There's just so much about it that I feel like I knew without having actually seen it. And I gotta say, there were times when I was watching Wolf where I was just thinking, how did this happen? Who let this movie happen? It is bananas.
Well, you've got a top-notch director in Mike Nichols. You've got Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer starring. So it's an interesting movie. So so this is 1994, summer 1994. Wolf comes out and is probably like the last, maybe not the last, like big budget blockbuster werewolf movie, but the last one that I think like actually did well. There was the American Werewolf in
unless
London,
you're counting,
not London,
unless
in
you're
Paris.
counting the Twilight movies.
Right, but and those are movies that involve werewolves. I mean, same thing with Underworld,
right.
With the Underworld movies. But I think I want to stick here to like the strictly werewolf movies, not like Abbott and Costello meet
Strictly Werewolf. Wasn't that a
Pattinson.
Baz Luhrmann movie?
Yeah, strictly. Oh man, shit! I didn't even think about it. But talk about who I would love to see do a werewolf movie.
It would be something.
Like we're putting the cart before the horse here, but a Baz Luhrmann werewolf movie. Oh, that would be amazing. I haven't seen Elvis yet, but
neither have most people.
I wanted to see it. I enjoy what Baz Luhrmann does. I don't always love the end product, and I didn't even see Australia.
Right.
But I thought I was very excited to see what he would do with this Elvis movie, especially considering that Austin Butler, who plays Elvis, it doesn't look like they're going for a traditional biographical film here, which makes sense because it's Baz Luhrmann. So anyway,
Dan, I was watching some of his TikToks. I'm talking Baz Luhrmann here. And he was just doing the, stuff at Cannes and was, TikToking about it. And he pronounced his name Baz Luhrmann, and it really threw me. I was like, I mean, it is your name. I trust your pronunciation of your own name, but I refuse to believe that it's not Baz Luhrmann.
I guess it's not like Australian than that. Baz
Luhrmann.
Baz Luhrmann.
But if that's the way he pronounces his name,
That's his
shouldn't
name.
we all be doing the same way?
yes.
It's going to take some adjusting and no one will believe me. So I'll be like, but I saw it on a TikTok.
Well, you saw it on his TikTok.
I saw it on his TikTok.
Yeah,
Right.
So and it's him saying his name, so there's some more credibility than just like, yeah, no, Bill Gates is trying to microchip us. I saw it on a TikTok.
Yeah, exactly.
No, like if you saw it on Bill Gates's TikTok where he said, yes, I'm putting microchips into vaccines, then it would have more credibility.
Right.
So, okay, so getting back to Wolf. Because I remember I saw it when it came out, so at the Westfield Rialto in New Jersey, of course. And I remember I liked it, but I didn't like it. As with most Mike Nichols films when I saw them first, I felt like, all right, there's something missing here. There's something that I'm not connecting with yet, and something that I'm not seeing. And
you get that with a lot of Mike Nichols movies?
I get that with, I would say the exceptions being The Birdcage.
Right.
Primary Colors being an exception. And although I would even say like The Graduate, like the first few times I saw it, same thing where it's like, but it does feel like, all right, there is something here, but I'm just not connecting with it. And I definitely felt that way about Wolf until my most recent viewing, which I did not
really
watch it in one sitting, but not because
it's long and it sucks.
Well, yeah, no, but that's not the reason why I didn't watch it in one sitting. It was, time did not permit. But on the most recent viewing, I watched it as a comedy.
Really?
And it doesn't sound like you're going to go back and watch Wolf again anytime soon, if ever. But if you do, watch it remember, Elaine May is an uncredited screenwriter on this.
Is she?
She is.
Oh, man.
She is. And I feel like coming back to it and watching it after learning a lot more about Elaine May and I guess by extension Mike Nichols as well, but learning more about the two of them and what their goals were with films, and looking at Wolf as more of almost a satire.
Well,
it works better.
Okay, here's what I will say to that. Not to say that you're wrong and we don't know what the intentions were of Mike Nichols, but from what I have read, it's that this is a movie that Jack Nicholson wanted to be made for quite a while. And I think that Mike Nichols, I read somewhere that he had wanted in the final scene for Michelle Pfeiffer to be wearing a red hoodie. Little Red Riding Hood action over there.
Yeah.
And she said that it would hurt the credibility of the film. So it is possible that there was a divide between the vision of Mike Nichols and the vision of the actors who maybe wanted to make it more of a serious thing. Because, if you think about James Spader played that as James Spadery as any James Spader could have played that.
Oh, and I love it. I love James Spader in that role. But don't you think Nicholson is kind of, I don't want to say he's playing it for laughs, but like...
I don't think so.
No.
I think that he really seriously wanted to make a werewolf movie and really put his all into it. The things that took me out of this movie are the age difference between Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
That really, really took me out of it. And it's possible that, like, you know, he intended for this to be made when he was a younger person, so just envisioned a young actress in that part and not somebody at a comparable age to him. But I don't know how much say he had in casting.
Well, which is interesting because the actress who plays his wife, Kate Nelligan, there's much less of an age difference.
Absolutely. No, she seems age appropriate. And she's fantastic. She is great. I have no complaints here. No complaints for Christopher Plummer.
And actually, it's countered because she's quite a bit older than James Spader. And
absolutely.
The two of
that is an interesting part of it too. All right, so here, why don't I do a little synopsis?
Yeah.
And before I read this, I will tell you, I was writing a synopsis, and it was getting so convoluted that I was just like, absolutely screw this. I am going to copy and paste from Wikipedia. So if you want to follow along, open wikipedia.com/wolf/too-long-and-sucks. All right.
And this is why Wikipedia is not a credible source, kids, because you can just John could have logged in and made that the posting.
The URL?
Yeah.
Okay. Will Randall is bitten by a black wolf he accidentally struck while driving home in Vermont. Afterwards, he gets demoted from editor-in-chief of a publishing house when it gets taken over by tycoon Raymond Alden, who replaces him with Will's protege, Stuart Swinton. Will discovers that Stuart had begged Raymond for the job behind Will's back and suspects that Stuart is having an affair with his wife Charlotte after he smells Stuart's scent on her clothes. Will bites Stuart on the hand while entering his apartment and rushes to the room to find Charlotte half naked. His worst fears are confirmed, and he leaves without saying a word. Will becomes more aggressive as he starts taking on the characteristics of a wolf. With the help of Raymond's headstrong daughter Laura, Will sets out for his new life. His first werewolf transformation takes place at Laura's estate, where he wakes up at night and hunts down a deer. In the morning, Will finds himself on the bank of a stream with blood all over his face and hands. He visits Dr. Vijav Alijis, who gives him an amulet to protect him from turning completely into a wolf. Pretty convenient, right? However, he cannot persuade Will to infect him. That night, Will transforms into a werewolf again. He breaks into the zoo and steals handcuffs from a policeman, David Schwimmer. Muggers want his wallet, but Will attacks and bites the fingers off one of them. He wakes up in his hotel.
Gets attacked by a werewolf. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. He wakes up in his hotel with no memory of what happened. The one where Ross's handcuffs get stolen by a werewolf. Will organizes a mutiny of writers who threaten to leave the publishing house unless he is retained as editor-in-chief. Raymond agrees, and Will's first act is to fire Stuart, urinating on his shoes in a bathroom and claiming he is marking his territory. Dan, I see where you think that he's playing it for comedy there, for sure. While washing his hands, Will finds the fingers in his handkerchief and realizes that he has wounded someone. He cuffs himself to a radiator in his hotel room, but Laura arrives and downplays his belief that he is a werewolf. The next morning, Detective Bridger knocks on Will's door to inform him that Charlotte was found dead in Central Park with canine DNA on her. Will wonders if he murdered Charlotte, but does not know that it was actually Stuart who killed her. Believing Will is a murderer, Laura goes to the police station. There, she runs into Stuart, who makes an animal-like pass at her, while sporting increasingly obvious werewolf traits. Laura hurries away, making arrangements for her and Will to leave the country. After killing 2 guards at the estate, Stuart corners Laura in the barn with intention to sexually assault her, but Will intervenes after discarding the amulet, restraining him, and the two fight. In the end, Stuart is shot to death by Laura after getting heavily mauled by Will. Still, in a half-human state, Will has a brief moment with Laura and then runs into the forest before anyone else can arrive. Minutes later, spoiler, Laura herself shows heightened senses when the police arrive, telling Bridger that she can smell vodka on his breath before taking her leave. The final scene is a close-up of her face and of Will finally turning into a full wolf howling for Laura. Then it goes back to Laura's face as her eyes become wolf-like, hinting that she herself is transforming into a werewolf. Dan, there are a lot of people who are drinking on the job in the daytime in this movie. That's the thing that they always smell, is like, ooh, vodka this early in the morning? Tequila in your coffee?
That's part of the satirical element, I think, is that everybody is putting all of this, like, their jobs are so important, but they need to drink to get through their day. So yeah, I mean,
the whole, like, the smelling the drinks and stuff like that feels very Elaine May to me. I can see that when we're kind of talking about this. Yeah, and by the way, this is clearly not written by me. Mine would be a lot funnier.
There'd be so many more puns.
In mine, it's too bad I deleted it, but I was basically saying that, Will's job as editor-in-chief is taken from him by PYT Stuart Swinton. And then he later finds out that his wife is sleeping with PYT Stuart Swinton. So something like that.
Of course. Yeah.
And it's so funny to think of, like, James Spader as the pretty young thing. But, like, in this movie, it plays.
Totally. And I love that scene in the police station where he's just it's also like, once you get bitten by a werewolf, apparently, like, you're okay wearing, like, sweats out in public when you're a publishing executive. I find, as we're talking about it and as I'm thinking about my most recent viewing, a movie that I kind of connect this to is American Psycho. In that
Okay.
kind of, it's that that I don't know if it's a deconstruction of these, the things that people, especially, wealthy white men, do to preserve their status or to flaunt their status. So,
well, yeah, I mean, another thing that, the more I'm thinking about the Elaine May of this all, the more I am seeing ways in which her imprint could be on this, because I feel like a lot of what this movie has is all about, toxic masculinity and male ego. And it isn't until the end where Laura is turned into a werewolf that it really kind of moves away from that. But the whole idea of people being, like, after each other's jobs and, just sniping at each other in that way, I can see how the werewolf metaphor can work. And also with the relationship with Will's wife, and then also with Laura, I can understand where that could really just be a metaphor for toxic masculinity.
Yeah, I mean, and the werewolf story, I think, traditionally has been used as metaphor. I mean, most horror movies, there's metaphor, especially in things like the Wolf Man and Dracula.
Well,
like
we're
the
forgetting one
universal
where
classics.
it represents puberty, Teen Wolf.
Right. Well, yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Teen so the representation in Teen Wolf representing, like you said, puberty. American Werewolf in American Werewolf in London doesn't really play up on that. Have you ever seen American Werewolf in London?
No. I'm embarrassed to say.
I mean, I hadn't seen it until recently. I had seen parts of it. And it does what I like, one of the elements that I'm like, it's not necessary in a werewolf movie, but it helps, is being set on the moors, the English moors. Great setting for werewolves. In fact, I think I was watching a more recent werewolf film, The Cursed, and that has a more, it's either set on the moors or a moorish terrain, But yeah, just that deep fog.
Yeah.
Uh, and that the mystery of what's out there. So American Werewolf in London does that really well. American Werewolf in London, though, is also satirical and in many ways very funny. Griffin Dunn.
Love Griffin Dunn.
Yeah. If you love Griffin Dunn, I mean, yeah, it's Griffin Dunn and David Naughton, and there's some pretty funny scenes in that. There's like one where like Griffin Dunn's been mauled, but he's like still alive and he's talking, like having a normal conversation. And it's just very Griffin Dunn. So that was very good. And to come back to Wolf for a moment here, I do agree, and I'm agreeing with something that hasn't been said, but it's kind of the unspoken thing here, is that it really shouldn't take several viewings and like film, like an education on film history to to understand the movie and appreciate it. And I think what you have with Wolf is just kind of this troubling, like, it's marketed as a thriller. It's got the personnel of a comedy, but then again, Mike Nichols has not strictly been a comedy director.
Right.
So it's not like you see, oh, Mike Nichols, it's not like, David Zucker presents the Wolfman.
Right.
Like, oh, that's got to be
exactly
fun. I almost said Jerry, and then I remembered he did Ghost.
Well, I mean, I think that looking at Mike Nichols' filmography as a director, I'd say that there's mostly comedic turns in films, even if they're not straight up comedies. The exceptions that I'm noticing are like Regarding Henry. Even things like Charlie Wilson's War had some comedic elements to it, but not so much. I mean, like Regarding Henry, there were certainly some like pretty funny moments, but they weren't like ha funny. They were funny in the sense of just like, oh, this guy who got shot in the head is just said Ritz crackers and they're happy about it.
No, I wouldn't consider that a comedy at all. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Like Mike Nichols' directorial
which is the first in the Wolf series from Mike Nichols.
Oh, damn! How did I not make that connection? But yes. So, yeah, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? And then there's those other weird movies like The Graduate that Mike Nichols does that, like, they're funny.
Yeah.
But in this really, in that kind of like uncomfortable way. Charlie Wilson's War, if you're gonna split up the Mike Nichols canon here, Charlie Wilson's War, I kind of put in a class with like Primary Colors, where it's a true these are true stories. Charlie Wilson's War not being presented with any type of facade, Primary Colors being a very thinly veiled,
the thinnest veiled
portrait of the Clintons. Oh, unbelievable! One of my favorite John Travolta performances, by the way, in Primary Colors. So he's got this kind of weird, like awkward comedy. Like, it's funny, but it's funny in a really like strange, uneasy. Like The Graduate is especially like uneasy. Heartburn is another one that he did that's like there's humor in it, but it's about a divorce.
Heartburn,
and it's not
Heartburn's great.
Funny.
I really like Heartburn.
Yeah,
it's a really fascinating movie, and I mean, clearly a great cast. You know, of course, we have Jack Nicholson.
Meryl Streep.
Yeah, and I'd say that the funny moments in that, they're also just not ha funny.
Right.
Not that I can remember, at least.
Right. No, the so the Mike Nichols funny would be like
the Birdcage.
Yeah. Even Working Girl. Working Girl has humor in it.
Well,
and
I'm thinking like Joan Cusack. Like she's very funny in it, but that's also
Working
kind
Girl
of like,
is a funny Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver's so funny.
magnificent in it. It's got like Working Girl's funny, but there's also there's also a reality to it, especially in 1988 when it was released. So yeah, Nichols is, I mean, he directed Catch-20, the film version of Catch-22, one of the most famous satires of all time. Carnal Knowledge was another one that kind of had that weird like humor to it, but yet it was also kind of uncomfortable, the kind of sexual explorations of these characters, and Jack Nicholson again. And
well, I would also say that, and I think this is one of his last ones, but Closer, not to be confused with The Closer, but Closer is like void of comedy from what I remember.
Yes. Well, I totally,
it does not feel like a Mike Nichols movie at all.
No, it's a very serious, intimate drama.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are a couple of comedic elements, and I remember seeing the play. I'd seen the play a few times. But no, yeah, Closer's really, really nice. Anyway, I mean, Mike Nichols directed the film version of Angels in America on HBO. Like
a laugh riot.
Yes. AIDS has never been funnier. The reason why Mike Nichols was a good match for Angels in America is because Angels in America actually does have humor woven in to this, very sprawling, serious story about politics and AIDS and being gay in the 1980s, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, we could go on and on about Mike Nichols.
We did.
So yes, but point of the story here is it, and as someone who went to this movie and maybe didn't get what they expected in 1994, it shouldn't, like I said, it shouldn't take almost 30 years and education in film history and nuance to understand that Wolf is more of a comedy than a horror movie.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm ever like in a situation where someone's just like, "Hey, want to watch Wolf?" I'll be like, "Okay, I'll watch it, but as a comedy."
Yeah, if you just watch it looking for just for every element in it, and it also there were, I don't know how many screenwriters involved with it. It was, I think there were a total of 4. So I think there were differing visions for it, all over the place, and what Nicholson wanted to make might not have been what Nichols wanted to make.
Yeah, totally happens all the time.
And yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it's it's, I don't know if it's one of those what could have been, because I don't know if it wouldn't have necessarily been better.
I think that it's a
straight up horror.
I think that it's a really great story. I don't know about great. It's a good story, but I just feel like it was kind of a mess, and it almost felt like I don't know, like Jack Nicholson and James Spader were making 2 different movies in a way. I don't know. The two of them also, it's a really interesting combo. And I think that there were just a lot of elements like those age differences that really took me out of it. And it's, I don't know. Some of the,
and again, it's another aspect where you look at it as, when you look at it and you're like, oh, okay, so I know, what Mike Nichols is all about, and thinking oh, well, these affairs have nothing to do with the people involved. It's all about the positioning and their careers and their jobs, even though which gets confusing, because Will and Laura, it doesn't seem like he's just using her.
No, not at all.
or vice versa, but it almost feels it because it definitely feels like Stuart is sleeping with Will's wife more as a power move.
Yeah, absolutely. More for himself than for Will to catch on and kind of feel cuckolded or something. It's more of just like a
Yeah.
claiming your territory. And and
Right.
so I don't know. I think that there's just a lot of things about it that just kind of didn't sit right with me, and that's okay. That's okay. You know what didn't sit right with me most of all? The lack of David Hyde Pierce in every scene, because he's there. He's one of the underlings at the publishing company, and or whatever it is that they do, and he just pops in and pops out.
Yeah.
Underutilized.
Not enough David Hyde Pierce, not enough of the like wacky author who, like, I don't know if she's supposed to be like Danielle Steele.
Oh, right.
Who's yeah. I mean, that would be interesting if you had it populated with all of these, like, you contrast the kind of this corporate publishing house with these like wacky artists that they represent.
I was like, I want to see this mutiny go down. I want to, like, that's the movie I want to watch right now. Like, I want to see essentially like The Paper, but with this office that's in LA's beautiful Bradbury building. I want to see what's going on here. And maybe the main character happens to be a werewolf. I don't care. I didn't care about the wolf part of it as much as I cared about what's going on with this publishing house.
Right.
I'm serious.
I want to see more movies about publishing houses. If the characters are werewolves,
yeah,
so be it.
I think it's really fascinating because you do get these different writers, all these different personalities, people who work in different genres. I think that there's a lot more of a story to tell there than a werewolf story, which we've seen so many times.
I like the idea of a movie where there are characters who are werewolves, but it's really has nothing. You really only know about it because, like, there are scenes that take place like at night or like during a full moon, and like there's a corporate event, like, no, I can't make it, and then it's, oh yeah, hey.
And then he's just like chained to a radiator sending emails.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, what's Steve doing? And then just cut to him, and he's like
texting his friend.
Yeah.
As a werewolf,
just sending like werewolf gifs.
Yeah.
It's like, me, right? Nobody, me.
The moon, and it's like a full moon emoji. Everybody else, nothing, and then me, and then it's like the gif of like Teen Wolf of him transforming.
Oh yeah. Teen Wolf is, I don't want to talk too much about Teen Wolf because I want to do a whole episode on Teen Wolf.
I know. No. We'll talk about Teen Wolf sometime, but let's talk about the werewolf. Let's talk about the werewolf.
All right, let's talk. The Wolfman.
The Wolfman.
Okay, so this is to the 2010 remake of the Wolfman. And it stars Benicio del Toro because I'm sure as soon as he popped on screen in Big Top Pee-wee as the quote-unquote dog-faced boy, someone said, we've got to do a werewolf movie with that guy. And, I remember...
Remind me in 20 years to make a movie where that guy is a werewolf.
I mean, they were trying to make it for a while. I think, like, for a while, it was just, like, kicked around where it's like, I don't know when it's going to happen, but at some point, Benicio del Toro is the Wolfman.
Well, Dan,
I don't know
anything. Do you know if this is intended to be part of the, like, the dark universe or whatever it is with, like, the Tom Cruise, the Mummy, that was a total honker, and like the King Kong and Godzilla stuff that's been coming up lately?
So the Monsterverse?
I think it's called the Dark Universe.
The Dark Universe? Well, I feel like isn't like the Godzilla King Kong one different from like what they were going to try to do with the Tom Cruise Mummy, and I think the Invisible Man, was the Blumhouse Invisible Man supposed to be part of that?
I don't think so. So, the The actual film. Oh, no. You're right. The actual films in the Dark Universe are The Mummy 2017 and The Invisible Man. And upcoming films. So there's Renfield, which I know that's been in production. Bride of Frankenstein, Dark Army, The Invisible Woman, Monster Mash, Frankenstein, Little Monsters, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Van Helsing, The Wolf Man. These are all different.
There is, I know it's a Derek Cian-France, or see, I don't know how to pronounce his name, and Ryan Gosling collaboration.
Really?
On the Werewolf. I don't know if it's the same one, but I remember I read that was potentially happening.
But yeah, the Dark Universe. And I'm looking at other articles. Collider, what went awry with Universal's Dark Universe? Like, I don't know if they're actually going forward with it. Den of Geek, an article. How hubris undid the Dark Universe movies. Yeah.
I mean, because The Mummy was just such a failure.
I watched it. I will say, Tom Cruise does this Tom Cruise thing. The woman who plays the mummy, which is escaping me right now, I'm sure I can pull it up pretty quickly, but she was pretty great. Let's see. Characters. Oh no, that's that's just the character name. I was like, her name is Princess? No. Full credits. Let's see. Wow, how come I can't find that actual character's name? Anyway, doesn't matter. I'm going to figure it out. But I think that it's like she did as good of a job as she possibly could, given the script and, the Tom Cruise of it all. I think that the Tom Cruise of it all is what really did it in. Sophia Boutella, that's her name. She's fantastic.
Okay. Good to know. We'll go on, keep an eye out for her. So the Wolfman, was not intended. They had originally announced this in March 2006, and Benicio del Toro, I think, was kind of a driving force behind it. And they were gonna, like, Andrew Kevin Walker, who wrote Seven, was going to do the screenplay, and Mark Romanek was going to direct it. I know Mark Romanek from music videos. I'm trying to think of features that he's directed. 1 Hour Photo, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, among others, but yeah. So and then, like, it was just like they were like all over the place with people, and eventually it was Joe Johnston who wound up directing it. Now, Joe Johnston was like kind of the like Steven Spielberg Jr.
We've talked about him before.
Yeah, he directed Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Jurassic Park 3.
The Rocketeer is where we talked about him.
The Rocketeer, right? So I mean, between the Rocketeer, I think like Jurassic Park 3 might actually be my favorite Joe Johnston.
Well, he did Jumanji. He also did Captain America: The First Avenger. Not for nothing.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Which I don't. I mean, like, I'm kind of all of these movies. Joe Johnston is kind of like he puts on a show.
He does what he's hired to do.
Like. Yes, but like no more.
No, that's
that.
What I'm saying
like,
is he gets in there, he takes the script, he shoots the script, and then he makes the movie, and then that's done.
It's always very like on the surface, by the numbers. There's a lot of, I don't know, attempt at mood and all this, like, it's this very gothic horror movie, or not even a horror movie, because it's really.
Oh, is it just about a guy who works at a publishing house who happens to be a werewolf?
It is just about that's it. Yeah, no, yeah, it's about a group of doctors who work at a hospital, and a couple of them happen to be werewolves. Doesn't
Yeah.
really get it. It's like nope, I can't do surgery. That is during the full
Ooh, what's the
moon,
date of that one
and
again?
I will not have steady hands.
Can we reschedule
Yeah.
for like one day after?
Yeah. Let's get into a waning moon there. So it's a remake of the 1941, where Lawrence Talbot is the Wolfman, and that's who Benicio del Toro plays. And he in this version, he comes back to England. He's estranged from his family, and his brother has gone missing. So his brother's fiance, Gwen, who's played by Emily Blunt, I was about to say messages him, sends him a letter. And she gets him on WhatsApp and lets him know what's going
when
on.
does this take place?
And
Oh,
in 1891. It's 1891. And Lawrence Talbot in this is a famous Shakespearean actor.
Okay.
He's kind of like, after the whole John Wilkes Booth thing, it's like, who's going to be our big Shakespearean actor of the day? Oh, let's get this guy. Nothing can go wrong with him. And of course, it digs into all of the old stuff about Roma, known in these archaic terms as gypsies, but that it's part, which it's not. So werewolf lore actually, goes back to ancient Greece. Is where you see it popping up. But usually in these movies, you have these, quote unquote gypsy caravans, and someone knows something, and it even referenced in Transylvania's 65000, Madame Ruby.
When the moon is full,
so
he'll be there.
Life has run its course. I sleep now. It's so boring. It's so boring. Basically, in this, spoiler alert, like the werewolf that they're trying to hunt down. Oh, and like Lawrence, of course, gets bitten, becomes a werewolf, and then they're like, "Ooh, who's the let's find the who's the werewolf?" And as it turns out, it is Lawrence's father, John, played by Anthony Hopkins.
Oh, Anthony Hopkins.
So. So then there's they fight, and Gwen eventually of course there's like an affair that happens with Gwen, and
which is his sister-in-law.
Well, it was going to be his sister-in-law.
Was going to be his sister-in-law, right?
Yeah. And she she shoots him, and saves him. And this movie, just like Wolf, ends with somebody else who's going to become the next werewolf. And in this case, and this is where I'm like, oh, okay, this is the movie I want to see. It's the inspector who's coming to inspect these murders, Inspector Francis Aberline, played by Hugo Weaving.
Oh, the most Australian-looking person. The most Australian-looking man. Speaking of Australians, and Baz Luhrmann.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Right. Toni Collette being the most Australian-looking
woman,
according to you.
Yes.
But yes, Hugo Weaving, and I love Hugo Weaving.
Yeah, he's great.
So, I'm like, oh, Hugo Weaving pops up. I'm like, okay, good. But I'm like, he can't even make this worth watching. So I don't think it's as long as Wolf, but it certainly sucks more.
The title is longer.
Yeah.
By a few letters.
Yeah. It's just there. It's just.
No, you're saying exactly what everyone else has said, and that's that.
It's not engaging. It's not engaging at all. So I guess that leaves us with like, all right, so where are the werewolf movies today? And I I guess the most recent werewolf movie I've seen, because I haven't really watched much of The Cursed, was Werewolves Within,
Which one was that?
which was the one with Sam Richardson.
Oh, right. That one was so good.
Werewolves Within.
That's a
was
werewolf movie
great.
done right. Directed by Josh
Well,
Rubin.
It's
so good.
It's a werewolf movie done differently, and it's not.
And that
not
one
as
is
much
clearly
about
a
the
comedy.
werewolves. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I mean, so funny, so good. I didn't even get and it's like at the end, you get to the end, this was just such a fun ride. But I feel like there's got to be a way to do a werewolf movie without making it a comedy or a partial comedy. Like where, because I think also like American Werewolf in London was kind of funny. I'm like Teen Wolf is humorous. Can we have an actually scary werewolf movie?
I don't know if we can, because I feel like there's something inherently hokey about those like transformation scenes. And we've seen so many of them at this point that it's kind of just like, all right, now here's where their fingernails grow, and here's where the fur happens and the ears change. And, we've seen it in Monster Squad. We've seen, we see it all over the place. We see it, it happens all the time. And even when they do it a little bit differently, like in the Twilight movies, it still doesn't work. It just looks like garbage. And so, I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith for an actual like scary werewolf movie. I don't.
It's tricky, but I don't see. Look, why are you going to make a werewolf movie if it's not going to be scary? I mean, is it to make is it like, what else are you going to satirize or metaphorize?
Well, Dan, do you want me to answer that question for you with my idea for this?
Please do.
Because I feel like it goes perfectly with what we're talking about right now. In my werewolf movie, and I would love it if we could involve a publishing house or whatever, because that's fun too. That's an entirely different movie. What I'm talking about is there are some people, maybe it starts off the same way, where there's an animal on the ground and someone's trying to help it and gets bit, and whatever. Somebody turns into a werewolf, and I feel like, and okay, I don't want to talk too much about Teen Wolf, but I feel like it kind of has the element of Teen Wolf where it's exploiting the werewolf nature of it. But in that one, it's kind of like hey, this is a high school kid, and now suddenly he's a wolf, and everyone accepts it, isn't entirely freaked out about it until like certain moments anyway. So in this case, they're just like, they are figuring out like, we should make a werewolf movie. We don't need to do any special effects. It's going to be so cool. And it's like, it's the kind of werewolf where they are conscious still of who they are, but it's these people who are, discovering this new shift that happens, and they find ways to make it work. Maybe there is such a thing of like, craving animal meat, and they figure it out. And I feel like it's in a lot of ways the same way that Santa Clarita Diet handled zombies. Because I don't like zombie movies. I don't like zombie TV shows. But Santa Clarita Diet was a really great zombie show. And, hey, maybe Timothy Olyphant could also do this one. I don't know. I'd love to see Timothy Olyphant and Drew Barrymore team up again. That'd be great. And so, yeah, I think it'd be really fun to have this moment where they are trying to make a scary werewolf movie, an accurate werewolf movie, and they actually have somebody who's a werewolf kind of like going along with it. But it's not like, oh, that is Michael J. Fox wearing prosthetics and a makeup. It's like maybe a fully CGI wolf, or it's a more convincing looking werewolf type of situation, but like still moving around and talking like a regular person.
So is this, and so I'm hearing this, and I'm kind of jumping in and a twist on it perhaps, because we were talking before about like, what if you had a movie where like it was just a regular movie and someone just happened to be a werewolf in it. Like, it sounds to me like this would almost be like some, young, crew, like, making a college, making a student film or something. And, like they're filming late at, like, they don't have permits. So they have to, like, sneak in. They're filming something. And that's where, like, someone becomes a werewolf. And then it's like they kind of are trying to continue making this student film, but like, oh, all right. And now you're a werewolf.
Yeah.
So we're going to make that work.
Yeah. And honestly, I feel like there's so many great, like, young actors right now who would be so good at this. I mean, hell, go with the name and cast Finn Wolfhard. He's got it in his name. But in addition to him, I feel like, speaking of Santa Clarita Diet, we've got Skylar Gisondo, or however you say his last name, who's amazing in everything that he's in. But there's also, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. I'm looking it up right now, but he's also in the movie Booksmart. He's the guy, Eduardo Franco, who's also in Stranger Things this past season, with like the really long hair.
Oh, right. Oh, who does he? Okay. Skylar. Just it took me a second. Oh, is he Gideon on the?
Yes.
Righteous
Gemstones.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So, he would be. Yeah, he'd be really, really good in that. Who's the other one that you were talking about?
Yeah, Eduardo Franco. I'm putting his picture up to my camera right now.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
He'd be so good.
Okay.
I feel like it'd be really fun and funny, and that could just work. I'd really love to see something like that. Anyway.
That would be fun. I would enjoy that. Or like, and it almost reminds me, and it's not exactly, but it reminds me a little bit of Shadow of the Vampire. About the making of Nosferatu. Very, very different, because this was, that was the making of an actual movie. And they were like, oh, this guy who's playing this vampire is really weird and kind of acts like a vampire.
Were they? Yeah, I know. Were they just like, oh, we've got to make this movie because Willem Dafoe is so goddamn freaky?
I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, jeez, what can't that man do?
I don't know.
And does he age?
Yeah, sure he does.
Like, I feel like you have to go all the way back to Streets of Fire to see what a young Willem Dafoe
Well,
looks
it's funny
like.
because when you see like photos that go around online every now and then of like young Willem Dafoe, and everyone's just like hubba, and it's kind of just like, yeah, Willem Dafoe rules. Like, yeah, he has kind of just like grown into a really interesting look, but still a good looking dude. It's just that it's exasperated sometimes when he has to do movies like The Lighthouse or something.
But he's in just like everything. Everyone wants to work with him. He's in like a million Wes Anderson movies, and the aforementioned American Psycho. And anyway, we could go on and on about Willem Dafoe, and naturally he has a place in any movie that we would want to be made.
Dan, does he have a place in your idea for?
He's in the DC and the Marvel universes, Willem Dafoe. I mean, come on.
He's in the DC? What is he in the DC?
He's in Aquaman. He's plays one of
about
like
Aquaman.
He like in Atlantis. He's
I only recognize the Vinny Chase Aquaman.
Well, that's the one we all wanted to see, the James Cameron
Cameron, Vinny Chase vehicle.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, so
do you like my Vinny Chase? Look at our Entourage recall. You even remembered who they were saying was directing it.
Oh yeah, because I remember I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that at the time. So for me, it really came down to who do I want to see make a werewolf movie.
Okay,
and I was focused on I was focused on the horror aspect, but was trying not to go. I mean, 'cause like naturally, Sam Raimi came to mind. We had been discussing him recently, and to see a Sam Raimi, I mean, like Drag Me to Hell, such a great horror movie. I would love to see Sam Raimi like just really go to town with a werewolf movie. I just want to, like, give him a truckload of cash and say, make a werewolf movie.
Right.
And I know it's going to be great. And then I'd also been reading I was also reading an article about, like, hey, let's bring back the werewolf movie. And they mentioned Ari Aster. So I thought, like, okay, worth jotting down the name here on the list.
I feel like Ari Aster has such a unique perspective and also just such a creative mind that, like, doing something using IP doesn't feel right.
Right, but involving, like, doing something original and involving the idea. I mean, for that same token, like Robert Eggers could also be an interesting choice. I feel like, though, it's like we're just kind of running down the list. And okay, Jordan Peele.
Definitely not.
included,
I wouldn't want him to do that either. Yeah.
No. Although if Jordan Peele was going to make a werewolf movie, it would be the best metaphor werewolf movie. I was like, okay, so John Krasinski, I thought he did some cool things with A Quiet Place. Rob Zombie is always an interesting choice, and I don't know if he's done the werewolf thing. But then I ended up landing on two different pairs here on my, like, okay, it's got to be one of these two. And first, so we talked about Stranger Things, the Duffer Brothers.
Okay.
When are we going to see something on the big screen from them? Because clearly they are capable of it.
Yeah.
And they are masters of genre and identifying what elements they need to make things work. All 4 seasons of Stranger Things have just had this wonderful sense of awareness of genre and an ability to take what's old and make it seem fresh. But what I would like to see happen is, like, take out the references, take the references out of it. And the references are some of what makes I love watching Stranger Things and saying, like, oh, that's just like in Carrie, or, oh, this is all like a big Dungeons and Dragons game.
Yeah.
Well, and I enjoy that with Stranger Things.
Yeah. Did you hear?
I would like to.
Sorry, go ahead.
I would like to see them take something like a werewolf movie and just say, hey, here's the, like, same thing with Sam Raimi, is just like, okay, Duffer Brothers, here's the money. What can you, like, here's the money, here's the element. Werewolf movie. Got to be a werewolf movie. Go to it. What are you going to make? What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to ask you if you heard about what the Duffer Brothers recently acquired.
No.
They just acquired a giant rake for all of their cash because those dudes are swimming in it. They've got so much Stranger Things money, they don't know what to do with it.
Deservedly so, to be honest. Like, that show just keeps getting better, in my opinion. So I thought about the Duffer Brothers. I'm like, they know the right, they know the right notes to hit. They've proven themselves. So, and then I was also thinking about the Wachowskis.
Oh, huh?
And I know, and yes, we all know now, yes, The Matrix was a metaphor for identity and being identifying as transgender and going and that experience. And The Matrix, I'm sure, holds up still, but I think, like, this generation needs that. They need something like that for them. And why not? Like, I think there's still, like they're incredibly talented and creative filmmakers, and maybe the Matrix Resurrections or rebooted or whatever it was. I enjoyed it. Maybe it wasn't great, but I think also maybe they need to do something new, and I think they should. I think like Speed Racer has kind of Speed Racer has become one of those, like, this was ahead of its time, and we didn't really give it a chance when it came out. Have you seen Speed Racer?
No, but I was thinking about it literally today.
Okay, so Speed Racer is definitely worth checking out.
Yeah.
It is unlike it's very unique. So I'm not saying that they need to do anything unique, because they also, as proven, I would say, with Bound, understand, like, the Wachowskis don't need massive special effects and like big convoluted like Cloud Atlas shit to make a compelling movie.
No.
So I think they would do something interesting with the whole werewolf genre and idea. And I mean, I don't know, like I don't think, I think we're done going back to the Lawrence Talbot well of, like, the 19th century Gothic, dare I say, castle out on the moors.
On the moors.
I feel like that's been done, but I don't know what else to do. But I would like I'd like some type of scary werewolf movie. And to your point about the transformation scenes, like, maybe not showing the transformations could be more terrifying than actually showing them, and playing up the mystery, playing up like the wolf nature of and that kind of that mystique. So, and then the other idea I had here, I didn't see it. This is in my notes, buried in my notes. Other idea I had, they should remaking the whole Lawrence Talbot thing, except where rather than him being a famous actor, he is a struggling actor who all of a sudden starts getting jobs when he becomes a werewolf. And the reason why I didn't end up going, it's Teen Wolf.
It's Teen Wolf.
It's Teen Wolf. He gets into the school play. He's a werewolf. And he's not playing a werewolf in that. He's playing like a Civil War. He's playing a Union soldier in the Civil War.
So strange.
In Teen Wolf.
I'd see that play though.
Oh, absolutely. So that's kind of where I am on it. Oh, you know who else I would love to see take a stab at a werewolf movie? The Coen brothers.
First of all, if you take a stab at a werewolf, it's not going to kill it. You have to shoot it with a silver bullet.
No, you have to shoot it with a silver bullet.
And second of all, yes, exactly. Coen brothers, I want them to do anything they want to do.
Well, I think about the Coen brothers, and I think about genre and how they are. I mean, like, I think we think about the Coen brothers, we think about comedy, we think about kind of those like, crime, the no good nicks.
Oh, the schmucks, the schmoes, and the no good nicks. Yeah.
Yeah. But they've also done things like True Grit and No Country for Old Men and Blood Simple and Miller's Crossing. So
Miller's Crossing, though, I feel like it does have some very Coen-y things about it. Yeah.
Oh, the dialogue especially, but John Polito being in it. But the Coen brothers, I think, also have our masters. And I rewatched The Man Who Wasn't There recently, which they make it in black and white.
Yeah,
totally like looks like it was made in the late 40s. And I actually think a Coen brothers werewolf movie could be interesting because they haven't really dabbled in horror or thriller, the supernatural.
Right.
Like
That's
Blood
true.
Simple is probably the closest they've come to doing a like thriller.
Right.
But think about the atmosphere of A Blood Simple, of The Man Who Wasn't There.
Sure.
Barton Fink. Think about like the atmosphere
Yeah.
of Barton Fink with a werewolf in it.
Yeah, for
Imagine
sure.
that Barton Fink was a werewolf.
I'm sure that there's a case to be stated for, some deep analysis on Barton Fink in that way.
I would love to do it. I love Barton Fink. So that's where I am on the werewolf movie. It's less about it's less for me about the idea of the story. It's more about the creative mind and the kind of challenge of, okay, make a scary werewolf movie.
Sure.
Be the first.
Be the first. Dan, do you want to tell everybody what we're doing on our next episode?
Oh, goodness. Yes, I do. We are going back to 1978, and we are going to take a look at the movie Magic, starring Anthony Hopkins.
The aforementioned.
The aforementioned Anthony Hopkins, and directed by the non-aforementioned Richard Attenborough, Sir Richard Attenborough. And I am... I'm excited to look. You know who else? I think Anne Margaret.
Anne Margaret's in it. Burgess Meredith is in it. I'm excited.
Yes.
I've never seen it, and I'm really looking forward to checking it out. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And so if anybody listening has any thoughts about any werewolf movies, really, email us, ruinchildhoodspod@gmail.com. In the show notes, you'll see a link to our link tree, and that will give you all of our social media and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you. This is such a wide, subject matter that I'm sure that everybody's got some thoughts. And that said, Dan, as you are chasing James Spader up a set of stairs, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.